was organized for children in the USA. For the news, stay tuned. Mongolia's economy is projected to grow by 5.8% in 2023 and 6.2% in 2024 as the mining sector expands, private consumption recovers, and fiscal expansion stays strong. According to the latest World Bank report, on November 28, the World Bank introduced its semi-annual Mongolia economic update.
In the first half of 2023, Mongolia's economy exhibited robust growth, primarily propelled by the mining sector. Early indicators suggest that this growth trend has persisted in the second half of the year. Nevertheless, growth has been markedly uneven, with the non-mining sector trailing behind, underscoring the economy's heavy reliance on the mining sector and its heightened exposure to commodity prices cycles. In the medium term, economic growth is expected to accelerate, averaging about 6% in 2025-2026, driven by a substantial increase in mineral production, as Oyotaro's 2023 mining production is anticipated to more than double by 2025. Yet, significant downside risks keep persisting. These risks encompass lower mineral exports prompted by slower than expected growth in China, as well as uncertainties on coal offtake agreements. Additional risks include inflationary pressures stemming from both further domestic fiscal expansion and heightened geopolitical tension in the Middle East, potentially resulting in higher oil prices. An analytical chapter that focuses on Mongolia's trade opportunities in digital services could help diversify the country's economy. Mongolia's strongest opportunities to bolster its digital services growth and trade are in software development, telecommunications, and digital marketing. However, despite progress in telecommunications and internet penetration, considerable constraints remain in digital infrastructure, including slow network speeds, cybersecurity vulnerabilities, and a shortage of highly skilled professionals. The report emphasizes the need for fiscal moderation to mitigate inflationary pressures and enhance macroeconomic stability, thereby stimulating private sector investment and bolstering global market confidence. In addition, the report recommends improving social protection efficiency to safeguard household consumption without spurring renewed inflationary pressures. In the medium term, the report suggests rebuilding fiscal buffers to prepare for possible shocks and create space for future investments, including as part of the new recovery policy. To promote economic diversification through digital services, the report advises enhancing digital infrastructure and establishing initiatives to upgrade digital skills.
On Wednesday, November 29th, a national forum on Pledge to Impact Gender-Responsive Political Parties was organized at the Toshan Hotel. The forum was held as part of the project promoting gender equality in public decision-making and women's empowerment in Mongolia, implemented by the United Nations Development Program Mongolia with support from KOICA. During the forum, political parties in Mongolia were called to continue their leadership, fulfill their pledges, and follow up their promises with concrete actions.
UNDP are very proud of this engagement that we have with great support from KOICA. It is about strengthening political participation of women, and that is at the core of the gender equality, one of the fundamentals of the human rights, in fact. Not for the sake only of being human rights per se, but also for the sake of making sure that the development in any country, and of course for Mongolia, is based on the not interests, but also is made together by both genders, both male and female. Political participation of women is extremely important part of the gender equality, and in the world, and in Mongolia we see that there is a lot of room for improvement. I wish to stress one important development that came immediately after the law on elections has been amended to include this quota for women's participation. It has been extremely important that immediately after the 10 political parties of Mongolia made a pledge that they will revise internal procedures, internal ways of thinking and nominating the candidates and supporting the candidates so that it complements the law and helps the law become reality.
As the main stakeholder of representative democracy, political parties signed a pledge to support gender equality and women's engagement on April 23rd of 2023. Since then, political parties have demonstrated noticeable efforts in reducing barriers to gender equality at the decision-making level, initiating comprehensive interventions and taking effective steps aimed at being gender-responsible, human rights-focused, sensitive policy institutions. The forum featured panel discussions on the success and impacts of gender-responsive political parties and on the next steps to be taken, where representatives from political parties such as the Democratic Party of Mongolia, the Hun Party, and the Mongolian People's Party took part and shared their perspectives.
In Mongolia, political parties in collaboration with the United Nations, non-governmental organizations, and civil societies have been implementing a joint project on promoting gender responsiveness in political parties. It's been 2 years, and through this forum held today, we are evaluating the results so far of this project. As we know, gender equality is the fifth goal of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Political parties are pledging to promote gender equality at the decision-making level. We set a goal of women being at least 30% of candidates running for the 2024 parliamentary elections, and maybe further extend that to 40% of candidates in the 2028 elections.
Over 7,000 members and supporters from 17 political parties participated and benefited from 17 comprehensive actions aimed at fostering internal party democracy that promotes gender equality and equal representation of women in politics and supporting female politicians.
Mongolians in the United States commemorated the 99th anniversary of the adoption of Mongolia's first constitution, which proclaimed the independence of the Mongolian People's Republic. The celebration was under the slogan, "Be the owner of your native language, be a citizen of your country." As part of the celebrations, there was an I-Mongolian cognitive competition organized among Mongolian children in the United States. Before participating in this Mongolian competition, children undergo online training jointly organized by Mongolian schools in the Washington, D.C. area. Throughout this course, they delve into the history and culture of Mongolia, expanding their knowledge about the country. This marks the starting point for their successful participation in the competition. When preparing to participate in this competition, children acquired knowledge about the history and culture of Mongolia. Additionally, they gained basic proficiency in writing in the Mongolian script. Moreover, I believe this competition is highly rewarding from cognitive perspective, as it enables children to learn about Mongolian culture and traditions.
I gained knowledge of Mongolia's past history. I also acquired knowledge about the 21 Mongolian emirats or provinces.
Over 50 children residing in the Washington, D.C. area were organized into 9 teams and took part in this competition under the slogan, "Be the owner of your native language, be a citizen of your country." They created a wall newspaper with the theme of "My Homeland," answered questions in the "Who is Familiar with Mongolia" competition, and showcased their talents through performances of Mongolian national songs and dances. Particularly among teenagers, high school and middle school students, the heavy workload often deters attendance at Mongolian schools. In response to prevent the detachment of our children from their history and culture, we organized this competition. The primary goal is to remind them of the Mongolian language, encourage them to speak Mongolian, and, most importantly, foster an environment where children can learn from each other. The competition is a pivotal event contributing to the preservation of the Mongolian language and culture among Mongolian children residing abroad. In the light of this, the Embassy of Mongolia in the United States, the We Together non-governmental organization, a Mongolian community of the Washington, D.C. area, Mongolian schools and business owners collaborated to jointly organize this significant event.
Through participation in this competition, children are actively learning about their native land of Mongolia. They gain insights into customs, learn new cultures, and familiarize themselves with the cultural content. Our aim in organizing this competition extends beyond the immediate context, as we hope that Mongolians residing in various foreign countries, not just limited to the United States, will be inspired to establish this event as a tradition for their children. Our most precious possession is our country. Consequently, I believe it's the responsibility of Mongolians to support each other and collaborate in such events. If Mongolians aspire to strength through unity, it's essential to cooperate and provide support in all endeavors like this.
On the anniversary day, Mongolian children in America came together, adorned in Mongolian traditional national costumes known as dil, honoring their traditions and providing an opportunity to take pride in being Mongolian. Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Next, our program will turn our attention to foreign news, partnered with international news agencies. The first commercial airliner to cross the Atlantic on a purely high-fat, low-emissions fuel flew Tuesday from London to New York in a step toward achieving what supporters called Jet Zero. The Virgin Atlantic Boeing 787 flight was powered without using fossil fuels, relying on so-called sustainable aviation fuel made up largely of tallow and other waste fats.
Well, today Flight 100 is flying from London to New York on sustainable fuel, and that's a first and very exciting.
The United Kingdom Transport Department, which provided £1 million to plan and operate the flight, called the test a huge step towards Jet Zero to make air travel more environmentally friendly, though large hurdles remain in making the fuel widely available. While governments have long talked about decarbonizing air travel, the transition has been moving at the pace of dirigible. Sustainable aviation fuel, which reduces greenhouse gas emissions by about 70%, is the best near-term way for the international aviation industry to achieve its net zero target by 2050, the U.S. Energy Department said, though it called the goal aspirational. The U.S. Government Accountability Office said that while domestic production of the fuel had jumped from about 2 million gallons in 2016 to 15.8 million gallons in 2022, it accounted for less than 0.1% of the jet fuel used by major U.S. airlines. It was also a drop in the bucket compared to the goal of producing 1 billion gallons a year set in 2018 by the Federal Aviation Administration. The White House, meanwhile, set a goal 2 years ago to produce 3 billion gallons of sustainable aviation fuel per year by 2030 and 100% of domestic commercial jet fuel by 2050. The UK has set a goal that 10% of jet fuel will come from sustainable sources by 2030. While this is the first jetliner to make the transatlantic journey using only the sustainable fuel, it was not a commercial flight and not the first jet to do so. Gulfstream Aerospace was the first to make the crossing earlier this month with a business jet powered only by the eco-fuel. Air France-KLM flew from Paris to Montreal 2 years ago using a mix of petroleum-based jet fuel and a synthetic derived from waste cooking oils.
Scientists in the UK are beginning to examine teaspoon-sized dust-like samples dug up from the asteroid Bennu, 60 million miles away from Earth. NASA has collected the biggest sample ever taken from such an asteroid, and it's given small amounts to 200 space experts around the world.
It may look like a bit of dust and dirt, but this small sample from the asteroid Bennu is invaluable to scientists hoping to unlock the secrets of the history of our universe. We already know the sample is rich in carbon, but it will take years of study to understand the nature of the compounds which have been brought back to Earth 6 years after NASA launched its mission to tag, track and land on Bennu. The precious cargo landed in the US in September. London's Natural History Museum has received 100 milligrams Bennu for study. Its lead planetary scientist, Professor Sarah Russell, says the amount may seem small, but each grain matter they study may reveal vital clues about how our solar system was formed. The NASA mission also aimed to discover more about Bennu's trajectory because it could pose a hazard to Earth. The team at the Natural History Museum also believed Bennu could have extraterrestrial water trapped within its minerals. According to Russell, there is a theory that asteroids delivered water to our planet 4.5 billion years ago.
Asteroid Bennu formed 4.5 billion years ago when the solar system was just a swirling disk of dust and gas. The young sun was starting to form. And looking at it tells us what the planet forming region was like. So the NASA mission OSIRIS-REx aimed to go to the asteroid Bennu to collect a piece from the surface, bring it back to Earth so we could answer these questions about our origins.
Russell and the team at the Natural History Museum are among 4 UK institutions which have received samples. The others are the Open University, Oxford University and the University of Manchester. Just as the mission to collect the sample took so many years to collect, Russell expects it will be many more years before scientists begin to start getting answers to their questions, but it will be worth the work and the wait.
And that SRC is about to be moved.
In a stark warning on Wednesday, Margaret Harris, the spokesperson for the World Health Organization, highlighted a concerning situation in Gaza. She emphasized that more lives in the region are at risk from disease than from the ongoing bombardment, underscoring the urgent need to reinstate the health system.
The World Health Organization recently conducted an assessment mission to United Nations Relief and Works Agency shelters north of Gaza, revealing alarming conditions. Dr. Harris expressed deep concern over the lack of waste collection around the shelters and the severely limited access to medical consultations.
On the 24th of November, WHO carried out an assessment mission to the UNRWA shelters north of Gaza. And the things they noted were the lack of waste collection around the shelters, the extremely limited access to medical consultation. So basically, if you're sick, if your child has diarrhea, if you've got a respiratory infection, you're not going to get you're very unlikely to get any medical care because it just isn't available.
The scarcity of medical resources and the crumbling health infrastructure have created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. With the absence of essential services, individuals facing common health issues are left without adequate care, increasing the likelihood of preventable deaths due to both chronic and acute conditions.
So those chronic conditions will become acute conditions, and those acute conditions will kill them. So eventually we will see more people dying from disease than we're even seeing from the bombardment if we are not able to put back this health system and provide the basics of life, food, water, medicines, and of course fuel to operate the hospitals.
The deteriorating health infrastructure and the shortage of essential resources have created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, amplifying the vulnerability of the population. Urgent international attention and support are required to address the critical situation and prevent a further loss of life due to preventable diseases.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We will see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Goodbye.